The following disclaimer is for those in California only. Pursuant to California Assembly Bill 2571, it is illegal for the advertisement and or marketing of any firearm-related products and or programs in a manner that is designed, intended, or reasonably appears to be attractive to minors. As such, if you are currently in California, this program is restricted to only those that are over 18. Please turn this program off now if you are in California and under 18. Now, on to the program. Hello and welcome to the CenterTens Podcast. CenterTens is a podcast that discusses small bore and precision air rifle from junior shooting sports on up to NCAA collegiate and Olympic competition. And now here's your host, Adam Pearson. Hello and welcome back to another episode of CenterTens. Well, today is the PET practice for the NCAA championships being held at Morgantown, West Virginia at WVU. But we're not quite ready to look at those yet, as we had one more conference championship that was held this past weekend. The Southern Conference held their championships. We had 8 teams competing. We had Georgia Southern, the Citadel, both the mixed and women's team, North Georgia, Alabama Birmingham, VMI, both mixed and women's team, and Wofford. And as we look at the scores, Georgia Southern topped the conference championships with an aggregate score of 47-25. They were the only team to breach 4,700 at the championships, and they were 107 points ahead of the second place team, which was the Citadel mixed team. The Citadel mixed team scored a score of 46-18, followed by North Georgia at third with a 46-16. In fourth, Alabama Birmingham with a 46-05. Fifth was the VMI mixed team with a 45-90, followed right behind them by the VMI women's team with a 44-94. Wofford came in seventh with a 44-49. And in eighth was the Citadel women's team with a 43-83. Georgia Southern scores, their small bore score was a 23-43, which was a new conference small bore record. And their air was a 23-82, and the combination with the aggregate of 47-25, that was actually a new conference aggregate record. In second place, the Citadel mixed team, their small bore score was a 22-81, their air was a 23-37. North Georgia at third was a 22-79 small bore, 23-37 air. Alabama Birmingham scored a 22-87 small bore, 23-18 air. Fifth was the VMI mixed team with a 22-71 small bore, 23-19 air. The VMI women's team scored a 21-98 small bore, 22-96 air. Wofford with a 22-09 small bore and a 22-40 air. And the Citadel women's team was a 21-42 small bore, 22-41 air. Your top shooters for the conference championships: Georgia Southern's top shooter was Addie Burrow with an 11.86. She was also awarded the Pinnacle Award, which is given to the student athlete on the championship team that has the highest cumulative GPA. So congratulations to Addie Burrow. For the Citadel mixed team, James Hart IV with an 11.74. North Georgia's top shooter was Maya Cameron with an 11.64. For Alabama Birmingham, their top shooter was Gracie Turk with an 11.53. The VMI mixed team's top shooter was Christopher Hicks with an 11.59. For the VMI women's team, their top shooter was Victoria Phillips with an 11.48. For Wofford, their top shooter was Ainsley Brooks Springer with an 11.28. And the Citadel women's team, their top shooter was Megan Mix with an 11.53. For the scoring teams, Georgia Southern, we had Addie Burrow in small bore with a 5.88. Ella Goldfaden with a 5.87. Emma Pullman with a 5.86, Zahara Gonzalez-Meza with a 5.82. And in air, Addie Burrow with a 5.98, Emma Pullman with a 5.97, Bremen Butler with a 5.95, and Zahara Gonzalez-Meza with a 5.92. And when they held the finals after the championship rounds, Emma Pullman was actually the winner of both air and smallbore finals. So congratulations to Emma. So looking at the second place teams, scoring teams. So we're looking at the Citadel mixed in smallbore. James Hart IV with a 585. Charlotte Welsh with a 575. Dalton Bonite with a 561. And Carson Wood with a 560. In air, Charlotte Welsh with a 591. James Hart IV with a 589. Carson Wood a 579. And Dalton Bonite with a 578. For North Georgia, their scoring teams in smallbore, we're looking at Maya Cameron with a 579. Alyssa Yancey with a 571. Madison Kennedy with a 566. And Courtney Allison with a 563. Their air scoring team was Alyssa Yancey with a 587. Maya Cameron with a 585. Jaden Frazier with a 584. And Courtney Allison with a 581. Fourth place, Alabama Birmingham. Their scoring teams for smallbore, we're looking at Emily Buck with a 575. Christopher Comstock with a 572. Megan McLaughlin with a 571. And Gracie Turk fired a 569. In air, Gracie Turk had a 584. Then we had a pair of 581s from Amy Cohan and Brent Ling. And Megan McLaughlin with a 572. Fifth place, the VMI mixed team. Their smallbore team was Ryan Harlow with a 577. Christopher Hicks with a 574. Michael Anesi with a 561. And Zachary Mariello with a 559. In air, Caitlin Gorachowski with a 587. Christopher Hicks with a 585. Philip Frey with a 574. And Ryan Harlow with a 573. For the VMI women's team, in smallbore, Victoria Phillips fired a 566. Emma Cameron with a 559. Adriana Saunders with a 538. And Darian Tweedle with a 535. In air, Victoria Phillips fired a 582. Emma Cameron a 579. Darian Tweedle a 571. And Smitha Lokshwaran with a 564. For Woolford, their scoring team, in smallbore, we had Ainsley Brooks Springer with a 561. Chanson Bullard with a 551. Garrett Dahl a 550. And Jesse Delgado with a 547. Their air scoring team was Garrett Dahl with a 569. Ainsley Brooks Springer with a 567. Allie Grace Frank with a 556. And Chanson Bullard with a 548. And finally, for the Citadel women's team, in smallbore, we had Megan Mix with a 567. Michaela Martin with a 546. Alex Maldonado with a 525. And Emma Goldman with a 504. In air, Megan Mix fired a 586. Michaela Martin with a 576. Emma Goldman a 556. And Alex Maldonado with a 523. So we want to congratulate everybody that competed at the Southern Rifle Conference Championships. Busy weekend. Some of those shooters, I know James Hart IV and a couple other shooters are heading to Morgantown to compete in the NCAA Championships this coming week. As I said, as this episode is dropping on Thursday, the PETs are being held for everybody practicing for it. And smallbore competition starts tomorrow on Friday. And then we'll see air competition on Saturday. So just a quick few show notes. Registration has opened for the elite shooting camps that are being held by West Point, conducted by Army West Point Rifle. There's 2 camps. There's a smallbore air rifle camp that's being held on June 10th to the 14th, and then an air rifle camp being held July 22nd through the 24th. The sign up and registration information can be found on the CenterTens calendar. There'll be a link on the show notes of this episode to find that calendar to get everything. Also, the Benton Gun Club in Benton, South Carolina is sponsoring monthly smallbore matches. They're being held every first Saturday of the month through the year, and registration and information on those can also be found on the calendar. So if you have any questions, just check that. If there's any questions, or if you all want to hear any other shooting information being passed along, you can email us at centertenspodcast@gmail.com. That's our contact for anything that you'd like us to pass along on the podcast. So that'll be it for this week. And remember, the most important shot is always the one that is in front of you. Thank you for listening to Season 1 of CenterTens. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This helps out tremendously. Give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook at CenterTens. CenterTens can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Pocket Cast, and at centertens.com. Hope you join us for our next episode.